I want to start first with the trade wars that we're seeing. If China has a reaction to buying U.S. LNG, what kind of opportunity does that create for you in China?
I think it's important that we leave LNG and energy out of the trade war, if it is called a trade war, because for us it's very important that people can get access to clean energy, and gas is the cleanest energy available to mankind in the fossil fuel arena.
So, well, so far it is left out, but if it gets in,
I think
what opportunity does that create?
My advice would be to leave it out. For us, it would make us more competitive in areas, and it would make U.S. less competitive if that is put in the war. But we think that the demand growth in the world needs everybody to be a part of that energy mix. And Qatar is the largest LNG supplier today, and Australia is also quite large and growing. We have announced that we're going to grow our LNG business from 77 million to 100 million very soon. So there is a big growth. We're also investing in the U.S. to have additional LNG that comes out of the U.S.
And very aggressive growth plans, to be sure. What was interesting at the IEA report today is they said that the U.S. could become the biggest supplier if all their projects come online. If that happens, do you have to produce more? Do you have to discount your LNG? Is it going to be more? You have to get more price competitive in Asia?
No, I think what's happening, if you look at the growth around the world and the requirement for the cleanest fossil fuel gas around the world, whether it's China, India, and a lot of the growing countries, in addition to some growth in Europe and other areas, there is need for everybody to produce more gas to cope with the requirements for the future. So I think there's enough to go around, if you will, and I think we need everybody to grow and to have a good supply to cater for that demand everywhere in the world.
Short term, though, you're one of the largest exporters of LNG to Europe. In the IEA report, they said the European nat gas market has no room to grow until the 2020s. If they have no room to grow, where do you grow?
Yeah, I think there is a slight growth that has just appeared in Europe. All the growth is really tied to economic growth, and there is a slight economic growth in Europe, and there was a growth in gas demand, a slight growth in demand in Europe, and I think there is a diversity that's required by the buyers in Europe to have different suppliers of LNG and pipeline gas in the energy mix. So I think there is room for everybody.
And of course, the other part, which I'm LNG, the other part of your business is oil. You're part of OPEC. We had that OPEC agreement with Russia, et cetera, over the weekend. How much oil are you going to be able to get on market, and how quickly?
We're a very small oil player, if you will. We're one of the smallest in OPEC, but the agreement that was agreed on last week in the OPEC, or over the weekend in the OPEC, was basically to go back to the previously agreed targets that were not reached. So there was a shortage by the suppliers. We think that with the availability of capacity that's available with everybody, you could come back to about, or bring in about 600,000 to 800,000 barrels into the market.
How about you?
We will produce about 30,000 additional barrels.
How quickly?
Immediately.
Immediately?
Yeah.
And then you cap it there, or do you raise it?
Yeah, we cap it. We try to stay within the boundaries of what we've agreed to have, but we don't have a huge capacity to grow beyond another 50 to 70,000 barrels. So we're going to increase about 30,000 barrels immediately.
One of the reasons why you're here at the World Gas Conference is you have a lot of partnerships in the U.S. with companies. There are also a lot of U.S. companies that have partnerships in Qatar as well for natural gas. Has any of those partnerships been affected by all the trade rhetoric going around? Do you get any hesitancy from the CEOs?
Not really. I think it's important, for the American audience and the world audience to understand the relationship between the U.S. and Qatar. We have 77 million tons of LNG that we produce annually out of 14 trains of LNG. 12 of these trains are in partnership between us and ExxonMobil. One is between Qatar Petroleum and ConocoPhillips, and only one out of the 14 is with the Anglo-Dutch Shell. So the tie between Qatar and the U.S. and the partnership that they have with us as companies that we're glad to have with us is very solid, and this partnership really is going to survive to the mid-2030s with the contracts that we have in place today, and we're growing.